Okay, let's jump in. You've got your beat locked down, maybe a nice bass line grooving, but it feels like something's missing, right? Your track needs that voice.
Hmm.
So this deep dive, it's all about finding that key lid synth sound and, actually writing a melody. We're pulling from the sources you sent us.
Exactly. And the mission today, especially if you're sort of newer to Ableton, is figuring out how to give your track its own, like, unique personality, that hook that gets stuck in your head.
Yeah, that signature. The sources really hammer home that the lead synth is, well, central. Why is it more than just another sound?
Well, it's interesting how the sources put it. It's not just notes, it's the track's character. It's often the main thing people grab onto.
Right.
Think about those massive examples in the sources, like you instantly know Martin Garrix's Animals from that saw lead.
Oh, yeah.
Instantly. Or the feeling you get from Porter Robinson's Language lead, or Deadmau 5's Strobe Arpeggio. They're not just textures. They are the tune, the identity that connects.
The sonic signature. Okay, that makes sense. It's the main voice. So talking about sound, the sources point to some tools right inside Ableton to help craft this voice.
They do, yeah. For getting your feet wet, they really recommend Ableton's own synths. Wavetable and analog. Great starting points.
Okay, wavetable first. What's the deal with that one?
Wavetable, the sources describe it as super versatile, really good for modern, kind of futuristic sounds. You can make evolving textures, sharp bleeds, nice pads.
Versatile, okay.
Yeah, and the sources say you can get movement going easily just by flipping through lave shapes and adding modulation. Things like LFOs.
LFOs, low-frequency oscillators.
That's the one. It basically makes things wobble or sweep automatically, and automating the filter cutoff, too.
Automating the filter.
Yeah.
What does that do exactly?
Right, so that just means controlling how bright or muffled the sound is over time.
Yeah.
The sources have this specific example. Load wavetable, pick a basic shape, saw wave, tweak the filter so it sounds right, and then maybe put a slow LFO on that filter.
Okay.
And suddenly you get this evolving sound. It sort of breathes. Instant movement, instant vibe.
That sounds like a really cool way to get something dynamic quickly. What about analog? How's that different?
Analog's more old school. It's based on, vintage hardware synths. So the sources say it's fantastic for punchier, warmer leads. Think retro stuff, classic house, maybe French house vibes.
Okay, cool. So we've picked our synth, our kind of paintbrush for the sound.
Yeah.
Now, how do we actually write the melody? The notes.
Right. So now you move from the sound itself to the actual musical line using MIDI. In Ableton, you just find your synth track, double-click in an empty space, and boom, a MIDI clip appears.
Oh, it's staring at that empty grid? Can be a bit much for a beginner. Did the sources have tips on where to start with the notes?
Totally. And they really stress keeping it simple, which is honestly great advice.
Yeah?
They suggest just picking a basic scale first, something like A minor or C major. Easy ones. Then just sketch out a really simple idea, maybe over 4 bars. And a good tip was to copy that, paste it into the next 4 bars, and just change a couple of notes. Made a little phrase that repeats and varies slightly.
It doesn't need to be super complicated then, like the source mentioned Avicii's Levels. That melody is incredibly simple, but wow.
Exactly. Sometimes the catchiest hooks are just a handful of well-placed notes. It's about the rhythm and the sound.
But, okay, even with a simple scale, hitting a wrong note is still possible, right?
Yeah.
What if you're worried about keeping it sounding musical?
Okay, yeah. This is where the sources highlight a really brilliant feature in Ableton, especially for beginners. Scale mode. It's right there in the MIDI clip editor.
Oh, scale mode. I think I've seen that button. How does it help?
It's super helpful. You basically tell it your key, like C for the root note and then minor for the scale type.
Right.
Once you turn it on, it highlights only the notes in that key on the grid. And the cool part is when you draw notes with your mouse, it can automatically snap them to the closest correct note within that scale.
Whoa, so it's like musical training wheels. It makes it hard to mess up.
Pretty much. It lets you just experiment freely and build confidence without needing, tons of music theory right off the bat.
Nice.
And the sources had a great tip for this. Try drawing a simple pattern just using the white keys on the piano roll. Then just change the scale mode setting flip between C major and C minor, for instance, and listen. The notes on the grid stay the same, but the whole feeling, the emotion, changes completely.
That's cool. Just changing the context changes everything.
And all this experimenting, designing the sound, finding a little melody, it leads to that moment the sources talk about, that like producer moment.
Ah,
You've got your drums chugging, your bass line down, and then you drop in this lead synth you made, playing this melody you just wrote. You loop it, maybe close your eyes, and suddenly it's not just a loop. You start to hear the potential. You hear where it could go, the shape of a full song.
that feeling. Yeah, that's kind of why we do this, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And the sources kind of give you a concrete goal here. Aim to build out a solid 8-bar loop. Drums, bass, and your new lead melody. Layer them, maybe automate that filter sweep we talked about, make it feel alive,
Okay.
then bounce it down, export it as an audio file, and just listen to it.
That first big checkpoint. Having that little 8-bar skeleton that you actually made and you're proud of.
Exactly that. You picked a sound, found a phrase, kept it in key, gave your track its voice. That's a proper milestone.
So you get this 8-bar loop, this basic structure. What does creating that simple loop really represent based on what the sources were saying?
What really jumped out at me is how the sources frame it, that basic loop. It's not just like homework or practice. It's described as the fundamental seed, the starting point from which a whole expressive track can actually grow.
Seed.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And think about this, just changing the scale of that simple 8-bar loop using scale mode, how it completely flips the emotion, that really shows how powerful that initial seed is. Small tweaks there can lead you down totally different paths towards a finished piece of music. Really makes you consider the potential packed into just that simple start, doesn't it?